it's interesting about the whole patent thing because
which I don't actually believe in patents in the end.
Neither do I, because it should just be open source for everyone. Really, well, that's another direction.
That is another direction.
Change of economics, change of worldview.
Well, and like that. Remember, I wrote about that in my Mars Declaration. Is that like we have to get over this. We build our society on credit. Like, you know, you have to get credit for this and credit for that, and we get real upset and real disenfranchised when we aren't given proper credit. And I think and it's hard for me to preach this, because it's like, you can't be like, okay, well, you know, we're all one anyway, and it's a morphic field with all this. It's not really your idea anyway. You're just pulling it from the cosmos. So, you know, just give it to everybody if you're the one who could pull it. Like,
even though you worked so hard on this.
Even though you worked so hard on that, just go live penniless and eat a turnip. You'll be fine.
Yeah, like, but we all have it.
I'm not really saying that, even though I am, in a way. But I do feel like there needs to be, like, if we were able to like openly collaborate with each other from ground zero all the way up, we would get so much further than we do. Like, one person is not an island. Even if you are a genius, like, you still, like, within your building of your structure, or within your system of thought, it can be improved along the way. Like, just, it can be. That's why I thought it was interesting. Like, Richard Branson had this thing about, he was like, oh, share every business idea you have with everybody. He's like, 99.99999% of the population isn't going to steal it or do anything with it. But every single person that you do, it gives you feedback on a way in which you can improve it. He's like, he's like, I don't believe in being secretive about my new ideas. I share them shout them from the rooftop.
Yeah.
I think
that's an interesting perspective. Yeah. That's great.
That's how Richard.
And also I was just listening to this short audio with some of my people that I work with, and it was about, should there be a salary cap on the amount of money a person can make in a year or whatever, and so it was just a discussion whether or not that should be. And so basically, in the end, a lot of people decided that there shouldn't just be a disparity, is what it comes down to. Because one of the things that you mentioned that was like, well, if, let's say, a person founded a product and had the idea for a product and was completely innovative, changed direction, changed their industry. But on the other hand, they couldn't build it alone. They couldn't market it alone. They couldn't do it alone, really, even though they had the idea for it and maybe got all the plans for it. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't get like a certain credit for it. And this was more in the context of like amount of earnings. Should they earn like billions more than a person in a company that doesn't make enough money to feed their family? So it was more about disparity, and that goes back to changing the economics. But at the same time, it's, you know, we're all egotistical, and maybe to a degree, because we're human, that we want credit and we want people to recognize us. But like, at what cost? Or maybe we just need to recognize everybody's gifts and everybody's contributions as worthy.
But that's what, we're even seeing right now. It's like, I so appreciate the people who work at the grocery store and like stock. Like you're getting to see, like, look, all these things that we've always like looked down on forever are essential. They're essential for our survival. And the whole entire notion of like, I do this and I'm smarter, and like I was born with a higher IQ, so I had the ability to, and the right financial things, and all the stars aligned so that I could become like this brain surgeon or something. I deserve X more than, I don't know. Like, it's hard. It's really, really a hard thing to tackle. I have thought about like doing markup percentage caps. So for instance, like, let's say a buterol or something, like, or whatever, like what was the EpiPen? Okay, the EpiPen, like the research and development has been bought and paid for that like a long time ago. Like that came out 50 years ago or something. I don't know how many years ago, but and they took away the generic drugs for it or something. They spiked the price to where The
Right.
EpiPen used to cost like whatever, like $5, and then it costs $100. And every person with like a peanut allergy, which is a ton of people, like have to have these on hand at all time or they will die. So it's an essential thing that they have to have. But like when the company realized that, oh, like they had a monopoly on this drug, they spiked the prices. Well, I like, some part of me thinks that like there should be certain things. It should be like a resource thing where it's like, okay, how much actual resource, like base material went into this product? How you can also calculate in research and development, like how much went to deforming this or whatever. And then you put like an actual percentage of how much profit you can make on it, maybe. Like, I mean, you still could sell so much of them or whatever. Like your profit.
Right. You could still make a profit.
You can still make a profit. I'm just saying, like, there should be a cap on maybe the amount of the amount you could charge for it.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely a possible solution.
But then that comes into the whole entire other thing that like I don't like, which is I don't like control systems in general. Like I don't like people to tell me like who's going to monitor that. Who's gonna sit there and say like who can and who can't do that?
Well, hopefully people have enough ethics. I suppose that's what it will have to get down to, that people will just be doing that because they want to do that and not have it inaccessible, and there won't be the desire for price gouging on people's health type of thing. Well, I think it's Japan, but I'm not sure what the price is, what the percentage difference is, but I understand that the CEOs of their company can only make X amount percentage times more their lowest paid employee. So whatever that difference is, whenever that CEO gets a salary increase, so does the person on the bottom.
I mean, I think that's like a really cool, but here's the thing is like, I think that's a really cool system to have within a company. And I wouldn't mind being a CEO or an employee of a company like that and like putting that into my company. But again, I don't want an overarching enforcing government to tell me what I can and can't do anywhere. Like that's the problem. That's the main issue with everything is like, I also kind of feel like I'm besides communal roads, like, I don't know what we need giant governments for. Like, we do not need to have countries, and we do not need to have wars, and we do not need to have all these things. Like, I know that's really radical, but they don't serve us.
Agree.
What individually serves us is like what, functions within your own active little community that you live and work and breathe it within. And then like I said, like highway systems. That's something the federal government should pay for.
I think maybe we'll go in that direction if we can get into smaller communities, like smaller pockets. That's a possibility for the future, and probably for the far away future, because I can't imagine that happening tomorrow. But people are really stuck on their countries and their ideas about allegiance or something. I don't know.
Their patriotisms.
Yeah,
I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. I remember, I was in Europe when I was like 23 or something. I was backpacking Europe, and I don't know what he was. He was like some, I think he might have been, he was either like New Zealander or Australian or something. He's like, oh, you guys have like the craziest propaganda. And he sang that song to me, and I proudly stand up.
I remember singing that in school too. Yeah. I think every country has that though. I
do think everybody has that where but I remember being a little kid thinking, wow, we're the only ones who are free. Nobody else is free. Wow. And that's
I just figured we were the most free, whatever that means.
That's because that's propaganda. That's
right. Exactly. My mom said that my grandfather, her father-in-law, so it was my dad's father, but she's like, he was Italian, and they left Italy because Mussolini was taking power and it was dangerous to stay there, and he was out of work earlier, and so anyway, whatever reason, they immigrated to the United States. And so she's like, he used to walk around like listening to the radio and be like, that's propaganda. And that's what he would say. It was like propaganda everywhere. Probably because he was just so used to hearing it in his, with Mussolini. But anyway, yeah, there was,
well,
I don't
it's,
know what
yeah,
the
I
answer
don't
is.
know. I mean, I don't even know if I'll put this in or not, but it's like my grandfather, he was in World War II. He was in the Navy, and he was in he was like a gun loader or something on like a battleship or something. And like whenever I would ask him questions about it, he was like, you know, or when he got older, they were kind of going like, oh, you should go to one of those World War II vet parades or whatever. And he was like, I'm 87 years old. That was 3 years of my life when I was like 16 years old. And like the thing is that was the worst time ever. If you guys want to glorify those 3 years of like, you know, me going over to Japan or whatever, then that's just, you don't understand. There's nothing glorifying about any of that. You think I want to go relive all that crap and talk about that and proud of that? So, and I served at my country and this, that. No, it was a forced thing. We all had to, like, he just went off and he would just be like, he was like, if you just like let it go, that'd be a lot better. We'd be like, okay.
Wow. That's radical thinking, especially for his generation.
Yeah, but
I mean with that,
when I get on the airplane, all I see is like guys with their, or you know, not all I see, but like there's always, I mean, there's parades. Everybody stops in the airport for the World War II.
Well, that's what keeps the military-industrial complex going, because otherwise, what would be the incentive to go to war? What would be the incentive? There would be no reason, unless like you have to have that glorification of it in order to be a reason to, oh, you know, this is your country, you got to defend it. I don't know if I want you to put this in there either, but this is, right. But it's true that that's the way it is. What would be the reason why people would want to go and kill another person?
I mean, like, one of the things I always liked about my dad is like, how he got drafted to go to Vietnam. And he ate a pound of sugar before his physical so that he would fail his physical. So it looked like he was diabetic or something. And I was like, well, what would you have done if that didn't work? He's like, I don't know, go to Canada or something. He's like, I wasn't going to go kill somebody for something I didn't even understand what it was for. He's like, none of us understood why.
Well, that's why they got rid of the draft. That's why they got rid of the draft. That's why the draft, they learned from that experience that, oh, we better not implement the draft because people who don't like that, they don't like being forced. So we have to sell it to them. Let's get it.
No, yeah, and then now it's like it looks like a video game commercial on.
Right. Oh yeah, when I used to work in Boston, I was right next to Northeastern University, which was next to an inner city area of Boston, and the Marines used to come and they set up on the campus, but I don't know who they were actually marketing to, because these people were in college. I can't imagine these college students were going to sign up to go, go as a Marine, but it was after 9/11, and I'm guessing it was probably to the poor communities because that's who they always target. And they came in these big semi trucks, and out of the trucks were these fancy super race cars, and they just had U.S. Marines written on the side of it. I was like, are you kidding? They're selling with freaking race cars to sign somebody up, like an 18-year-old kid to sign him up to go to war. That's great.
Like Brian was telling me that, he was from immigrant parents or whatever, and he was living in Florida, and he was in his senior year of high school, and they had recruiters come to the high school for some military thing or whatever, and they had all the boys stay after for an assembly or something, and he said that they gave this test, and you took this test or whatever. It was like an aptitude test. And they called Brian in a couple of days later because he scored 100 on it or whatever. And they were trying to sell it. They're like, you did so good on this. And they were trying to sell it to him. And they were just like, you could buy college with this. They were like, you could go in as this and this. And he was like, Nikki, the test was what is an alley? A road. B, a back, he said it was just a fence, he said it was just like common sense stuff. He was like, and they were so impressed with his 100 on it, and he was like, yeah, I probably don't think I should be doing this.
Right. And of course they marketed him because, like you said, he had immigrant parents. So that's
Immigrant
easy.
parents, you know, like they don't have
probably, in a certain economic
they knew he was
bracket.
going to have to, he wasn't going to get his college paid for. They knew he was going to have to get a loan or whatever.
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started.
You know, so that's the whole thing is like they that's who they're marketing. That's what they're doing.
Right.
Like all my friends that I used to work, I was a lifeguard with a bunch of three or four guys who went into the military right afterwards, and all of it was economical.
Oh yeah, I know. That's the thing.
It's some kind of form of it's a kind of welfare, like, and it's not. But
well, it was the GI Bill was made for that. That was the GI
right.
Bill originally, but then
that's the incentive.
And also a lot of the times it was reserved. So when it wasn't in a time of war, it wasn't a bad thing to do. You had your weekends or however many hours you had to put in to go do it. And you could call on the reserves or not even the National Guard in the reserves, right? So it would be almost never. But now we're constantly in a state of war that those people are called to duty all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's just crazy. Yeah. Oh,
no, and I really don't want to be a part of it anymore. I'm done with it. Like, I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to be paying taxes towards.
Well, that's always been my point. I told you I used to write on my checks, I love that. not for a war when I did my tax returns. Not forced education. Yeah. I mean, really, I'm voting with my tax dollars. I used to I think it's illegal, but I'm not sure. I used to write on dollar bills all the time, like in little messages, like war is not the answer. It was right around like the Iraq war after 9/11. And I always used to write messages like oil for money, you know, like money for oil, whatever, but oil money, like dirty money, like I forgot even what I wrote, but I used to write messages.
Yeah, right. That's funny.
About how war was terrible.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, war just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Well, we're past it. It's like we want to just evolve past it. It served its purpose from another dimensional level. That's another thing. Because all of these things, like, okay, everything that we're in, we have to evolve. So we're evolving from something, right? Or we're doing this process if we're in a linear evolution or this feedback loop. It's more than I can really understand with that. Like, if you're not looking at a third, like in a Earth's, like, evolution, you know, like time, you can see it linear, but at what point it's like, all right, well, do we learn? But I don't know, from another perspective, it's like, well, there's no right or wrong, there's no black, there's nothing bad, there's nothing evil, there's no wrong, actually. And so the feedback that we're giving is just experience. So actually, from that perspective, nothing like war and killing isn't even bad. It's just like an experience that the soul, or like this entity, I mean, this is getting into other field, but like wanted to have in order to understand itself. And then it had that experience and maybe can evolve past it or not have that experience again.
And now it's now you're bringing like whatever you bring. It's like Indians and pioneers. It's like guns and bow and arrows. It's like drones to I mean, it's not even, playing fields aren't even equal anymore. It's not.
Right.
I mean.
Right. You know, it's true. Like right now we're at the point where, I was listening to this thing the other day. I was like, oh, great. I'm not even I hadn't thought of that. Great. Thanks a lot. I know, because I usually have plenty of crazy things to think about. But this one was, you know, nuclear weapons. Okay. So right now they're kind of reserved for governments, and governments are supposedly controlling them, or nuclear weapons are supposedly, but okay, maybe every once in a while it gets into the wrong hands and whatever, but at some point there's going to be companies that will be able to make that, or just decide that they can and will, because there will be corruption, there will be turning the blind eye. Even if there are monitoring systems, they just have enough power to do that if they wanted to. And then, so now these other type of entities will be getting this type of destructive weapon. Crazy. I was like, all right, well, I'm not going down that road. I don't need one more thing to worry about.
I know. That's where I just like, I hope aliens
draw the line.
And I really hope they are diffusing them when they come up, you know. Right. I don't know. Or inner earth beings who are like, yeah, we don't really like it when you nuke our ocean floors, and like, maybe the fave come in on us. We don't like that so much.
Right.
I don't know if that's real or not, but like I
always think that, like, I'm like, inner Earth, do they see the ceiling? I don't think they see the ceiling. I always think that about the inner Earth. I'm like, do they have like a sky that looks like our sky? You know what I mean?
I just always thought it basically looked like they were in a ginormous Carlsbad Caverns or something. Like,
that's kind of what I thought too, but I'm wondering if it's, then I thought maybe it's not like that. Maybe that's what we're in. That's the other thing. Then I thought, oh, well, we're just in a giant sphere also.
Yep. I've thought that too.
So I don't know. Who knows? Especially if we're just fractals. Then maybe we're just all in giant spheres. Wait, there was something I was going to, I don't remember. I was going to ask you.
It's weird because it's like, you know, on psychedelics, I have seen the like energy threads that connect everything. And I've seen, you know, like how weird stuff fractals. It really, like, and by fractals, I mean, I literally mean like
pixels,
like those Fibonacci sequences, like the Fibonacci like spirals, like things will start fractaling out like that and then start making all these weird geometric patterns, and you're kind of going like, yeah, and it just makes you think like, oh wow, maybe my instrumentation is being opened up to other wavelengths that I normally am not able to perceive, but now it's like another way of making the instrumentation work in a different,
that's the purpose of them.
It is, but it just makes you kind of go, whatever this is, whatever this thought experiment is, or whatever our existence in general is, we don't know. Like, we are not being given any information about it. So, and maybe that's part of the game, is to try to self figure it out or something. I don't know, but
and also, can we ever really figure it out? You know, and if we're always
not
creating
completely,
it, no,
that's true. If you are always creating it, and that's the other thing, is that like even with modern day science, I would be just so much better off with it if it would just be a little bit more humble in its use of language, meaning like
everything's so absolute all the time.
Yes, everything's so absolute, and now we understand this. And that's what it is.
We figured it out. That's it. End of story.
Yeah.
Buck stops here.
Next question. Yeah.
Got that one, check. And as if it's stagnant, as if it will always, even if that is correct. First of all, it's only correct within the context of the way it's being looked at. Again, the worldview. And then the other thing is like, it's if everything is constantly evolving or changing, or the observer is changing it, then maybe it's correct this year, but in 100,000 years, it's not the same.
Yeah, I mean, like it may be, you know, whatever, it may be correct based on the information that you have available at this time, but like there will always be additional information.
Yes,
just will be, and
and also different perception. Yeah,
and I also think about this a lot in terms of, like, Benjamin Franklin was alive not that long ago, and he discovered electricity. Okay, that's like a huge thing that's part of our everyday life now, but that was like 200 years ago, or 200 or whatever. What is that? 250 or 275
something. Yeah.
I don't know, like whatever. Like, there's like, what if there's an electricity right in front of our faces? Like something like electricity, like an entire thing that we don't even know about yet. And there is, there has to be. There always is going to be.
Yeah. Well, I think the point was mentioned actually in like all the different fields. Did you watch the video with Deepak Chopra? Speaking of,
yes, I love that, with the revert sheldrake. Yep. All right.
Yes.
Like that was the morphic field. That they was
right. The morphic field and all the different fields. So,
but we don't know how many of these exist. Like, what, you know, like.
Well, I would guess that they're infinite or constantly changing anyway, because everything is infinite. I don't know.
Well, and then that makes me think, like, and we poo-poo. I hate saying that word. I gotta come up with a different word besides that. Anyway, we always kind of like scuff our nose at like dreams. Oh, that's just your brain processing the days, whatever. We don't really understand what happens to a third of your life that you're unconscious for. So
Yeah.
And some people don't dream, and if they do dream, it's about your relationship to your father, or like some whatever it is, they're Freudian and stuff or whatever. Okay, but there is I think there's something to like other realms and stuff, like those dimensions or whatever you want to call them, those could be as real as this.
Well, it goes back to that poem of I dreamt that I was a butterfly, but then I woke up. How do I know if the butterfly wasn't dreaming that it was me?
It was me.
Yeah. So how do you know that you're not the butterfly dreaming that you're a person, or are you the person dreaming a butterfly? You don't really know. I mean, the whole thing is that maybe the dreaming world is the real thing, and that the waking world is actually the dream.
Yeah, I mean, I for instance, like the psychedelic trip I took, not this ayahuasca one, but the one, the mushroom one, it was like that felt like I lived in that longer than I've lived here.
Wow, that's interesting time.
Yeah, it was only 4 hours long, but I still feel like that was a longer lifetime than what I've my 37 years so far here. Like that's weird that something like some little mushroom can do that to you. Like, what is that?
Right. Well, it's a plant medicine. It's a conscious thing. It's a conscious being. That there's been plant medicines from shamans and traditions all over the world. I mean, for so much time that, I think that that's the beauty of it. That's the gift of the plant.
So I have, in my, dreamland, like there's this like way of flying, and like I've gotten to see the suit up close, and it is like little tiny cones, like these little rod cones that are magnetic. And
yes,
they're like nano. It's basically like nano magnetic cones that kind of emulate bug wings. Like when you see how bug wings actually like vibrate off of each other, I think it's some form of magnetism that's used with that. Anyway, in my dream, like when I would fly, like I just would think that like I was just flying in my dream. And then like recently I like asked somebody in the dream, I was like, well, how does this actually work? How is this working? And they're like, well, it's a technology. And I was like, well, how? And then they showed me how the clothing that we would wear had the ability for us to basically like you could, I don't know how you turn it on, but we were working against the ions in the air with these magnetisms, and that's how you're flying everywhere. And I'm thinking, if I could dream that could be possible in real life someday.
Well,
like I think that's a science that would exist. Like I personally am not the one to do it, but I'm just saying, like there are things like electricity that are there. Mm-hmm. You just don't know about them yet.
Well, maybe when you're dreaming, you're going into a different time of, like a future or something, or could be also another dimension. But and so you're
because even your dream is still part of the hologram, because you're
right. Yeah. At what point would you ever leave the hologram?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't think you would be able to. But I mean, that is kind of scary too. You're like, wait, I'm never gonna leave this hologram. But where would you go to another galaxy?
How many holograms are there?
And are they individual holograms? It's all part of the biggest hologram. I guess if it's a fractal, it's constant. Like
and
it's
we are all connected in a circle in a hoop that never ends.
It's crazy. Oh my gosh.